Guys, we have some exciting news.
The Forties Formula is going live on August 14th at the Green Collective at Funan Mall.
We are going to dive deep into the science, myths, and struggles around sugar addiction.
Breakfast and coffee are on us, thanks to the generous sponsors, Guzman y Gomez.
It's a small and intimate event with only 15 spots, so it's first come, first served.
Tickets are only $20, and that includes breakfast and $5 towards your purchase at the Green Collective.
Come and join us for a conversation that might change the way you eat, think, and feel.
What you're not changing, you are choosing. So if you are choosing your business time and time again, you're choosing to not put that time, energy, and attention into your health. And so why should you be so surprised when you go up another size next year? You have all this stress at home. Does it make sense to not have a physical outlet for it? It has to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, it becomes an autoimmune condition. In women, that's just how it ends up. Menopause is only going to amplify what your baseline is. So if your baseline health sucks, yes, menopause is going to make it a complete shit show. You cannot uphold a boundary outside of you that cannot be upheld within your own self. So unless you can set a standard for yourself and uphold it for yourself, you will not be able to externalize it because you do not believe what you say because there's no alignment between your words and actions. I was 15 kilos heavier, but I not once thought less of myself because of the number I saw on the scales. Then people do this every single day. Your listeners get on the scales. They see a number they don't like and they judge themselves and they berate themselves and they pull themselves apart. Girl, stop. Girl, let's just be real for 2 seconds. You need to get the steps in, put the Haagen-Dazs down, go for a walk. Where am I likely to default? What comfort is killing my dreams? And what comfort is enabling me to get to where I want to be? Few things beat feeling strong in your own skin. Your rate of loss of muscle mass is only going to accelerate after menopause. But there is no substitution for lifting weights. So you have to lift weights if you want to age well. And it's your best anti-aging organ. If you want a high-performance body, you have to have high-performance habits and a belief system that backs it up. Preparation for menopause and your 40s starts in your 30s. I even tell women in their 20s, it's never going to be easy to build muscle right now. Get good at turning up for yourself and keep turning up.
Hey, and welcome to the Forties Formula, your go-to place for insightful discussions on navigating the 40s and thriving in this transformative decade.
We're your hosts, Jasmin and Amanda, two women that are passionate about exploring the challenges and adventures that come with turning 40 and what lies ahead. All right, before we dive into today's episode, let's talk about something that makes our lives way easier.
And tastier, because let's be honest, between work, workouts, and life, we don't exactly have time to wrestle the trolleys at the supermarket.
Which is why we've been with the Meat Club since the beginning of the Forties Formula.
Yep, they've had our back since episode 1 and tasty dinners on our plates too.
With the Meat Club, you skip the supermarket chaos and get premium nutritious proteins delivered to your door on your schedule.
It's a subscription that actually simplifies life. No last-minute grocery runs, just quality meats, seafood, fruits, and veggies always ready when you are.
Their mission says it all. Good food is the foundation of a great life. And with the Meat Club's delivery, it's coming literally to your doorstep.
This is where quality meets convenience, and we're here for it.
All right, TMC drop check. Let's see what we got here. Oh, well, first things first, you can't have Taco Tuesdays without snapper.
But what about salmon? Because that's definitely our favorite.
Okay, fair enough. But chicken breast, that's the workhorse we're eating every single day.
I think it's all about the chicken thighs.
Oh my gosh, chicken thighs. I don't know if I could get one down myself, but I do know that this mince makes a mean burger.
Who wants burgers when you can have a grass-fed beef eye fillet steak?
Okay, that is amazing. But with that steak, I would definitely be serving this delicious broccoli and spicing it up with these chilies.
Okay, you've definitely won there. I have got some coriander, some cherry tomatoes. I mean, check out the color on those. And for dessert, strawberries.
We also got some fruit for the kids, which they will love. And one of the coolest thing about the subscription, an amazing quality chef's knife and a beautiful wooden cutting board.
Honestly, it's the easiest way to eat well without overthinking it.
So if you're ready to upgrade your meals without adding to your mental load, head over to themeatclub.com.sg.
Sign up for the flexible subscription, no lock-ins, just high-quality proteins delivered straight to you.
And don't forget to use our code TFF12 to save $12 off your first order.
We'll drop it in the show notes, or you can find it on our Instagram.
The Meat Club, where quality meets convenience. So I am so excited to have Laura on the show today. I always joke, we're both in the same coaching community, and I always joke that Laura says the things that my brain wants to say, but she actually says them out loud. She's amazing. She doesn't back down from laying down the truth, and she sure doesn't back down from giving you the best possible advice on how to lose fat and keep it off. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure and privilege to be here.
We are so happy to have you here on one of our most requested topics. I know that you work primarily with CEOs, high achievers, women who are getting it done, right? So why do you think so many high achieving women feel like, okay, now I've reached the pinnacle of my career, but I can't get in shape? It's a trade-off, right?
Yes.
And I think moms do this too, by the way. It's not just the high performers. Yes. Moms are like, oh, I have kids now, so that's where my priorities, I can't be in shape. How do you coach clients to get out of that?
That's a really good question. As it relates to being a mom, I think a lot of this ties back to worthiness. So if you're a person who doesn't feel worthy of prioritizing your health and well-being and fitness, it doesn't matter if you have a business or if you have children or if you have a dog or two or three or, a whole farm, you'll always find ways to prioritize other things above your health and fitness. So I think this really comes back to what are your priorities, what do you value, and what fuels you to be better in your business, better in your family, better as a mom. And it's easy to blame those things. It's easy to blame your business. It's easy to blame your children and circumstances. But at the end of the day, what you're not changing, you are choosing. So if you are choosing your business time and time again, you're choosing to not put that time, energy, and attention into your health. And so why should you be so surprised when you go up another size next year?
When they're choosing their business, let's say in this, in the CEO example, right? How do you get them to actually see that? Like, because a lot of times women are like, well, this is the only way, right? If I don't spend 15 hours in the office, I will not get ahead. So where do you wedge in health and fitness in that type of thinking?
As it relates to business, I mean, that's the cool thing with fitness. There are so many parallels. The people who are getting ahead in any area of life are investing in two areas, with their time and with their money. And you can only put so much time into your business before you start reaching diminishing returns. We've all been at the computer for so long where you've stopped being able to make sense of what you're reading. We've gotten to that 12th hour, 13th hour of the day, and we've gone, I'm just looking at the words. I'm not even computing what I'm reading anymore. So it's not just a matter of time. It's a matter of leveraging your time. What are you getting out per minute that you are putting into your business? Are you working intensely for that minute? Are you working intensely for that hour? Or are you only working at 50%, 60%, 70%? Because again, if you're only working at 60% of your capacity for that hour, you're probably better off going to the gym so that you can go back and work at 90%. It's all about the return on the time. It's not just, more hours in equals progress. No, it's intensity of those minutes.
Yeah. Oh, that makes so much sense, doesn't it? Because I think everyone does look at quantity over quality.
Absolutely.
And then if you get to the gym and you do something hard, then the rest of your day, everything's going to seem so much easier.
So much easier. Because your day doesn't get worse than doing Bulgarian split squats.
No, it does not. By the way, it does not. I did it this morning. See? That was the worst thing I did today. Okay.
If you start your day and you do Bulgarian split squats, I promise you your day only gets better.
It will improve.
And it's the same with parenting for the moms who are listening. Are you just in the same room as your children or are you having meaningful conversations with them? Are you seeking to understand them? Are you seeking to explore new areas of creativity with them? Are you looking at your phone the whole time?
Yeah.
Time is not the same as quality time. So I would go back to what is the quality of that time spent in that avenue? And is it actually giving you a return? Because I get to a point where I've done, let's say 4 hours of admin. I'm like, girl, you've been looking at the same tab for 20 minutes.
Yes.
Go change task.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anything else, just break it up. Go do some squats, fill your water bottle, have a meaningless conversation, and then come back.
Amanda, can we talk about how clean Guzmini Gomez's food is? Like truly clean, not the it has lettuce, so it's healthy kind of clean.
Oh, totally. GYG is on another level. There's no preservatives, no artificial colors, no weird additives. It is just proper, real food.
I read that they went through 21 versions of their corn chips before they found the one. Now that's commitment.
And they fly in their avocados and tomatoes daily from Australia to Singapore. That is level of commitment I want in my food.
You can taste it, whether it's the burritos, the bowls, or those Chipotle seasoned fries. You just feel good after eating it.
And it's really why my entire family keeps going back. Clean is the new healthy, and GYG has been leading that charge since day one.
They've literally reinvented fast food. Who says it has to be dodgy and deep fried? Not on GYG's watch.
That is so true. And exactly what you said about moms, right? It's like I work with a lot of postpartum moms, like immediate postpartum moms. And it's always like, I can't leave the baby. I can't leave the baby. I was like, fun fact, this is when it is actually easiest to leave the baby because they are not particularly aware of your interactions with them other than from the fact that you are feeding them.
Yes.
You know, like they don't actually have the emotional capability to feel abandoned right now by you going to take 20 minutes at the gym. So no worries.
Yes.
It actually gets harder when they get older. Although then you can just take them to the gym like Jasmin does.
Oh, yeah, I do. I take them with me.
Oh, it's so cute.
Amazing.
Yeah, those guys are in there getting it done. Yeah.
But they're seeing that from such a young age. So it's so powerful to have that behavior modeled to them from such a young age.
Yeah.
So they're lucky to have you.
Yeah, they are.
Yay.
Great job, Mom.
I say the same thing.
Yeah.
You're lucky to have me.
So I'm working so much, I can't work out. I have kids, I can't work out. What are some of the other main excuses that you see? And then how do you kind of turn that around?
I think it continues to come back to that order of priority. So let's say one child might be potentially ADHD, might have autism, might have Asperger's, might need some sort of special attention and diagnosis. And then that's when the routine starts to waver for that person that we're training. Again, it comes back to, well, you have all this stress at home. Does it make sense to not have a physical outlet for it? Does that? Are you not going to be crazier for not training? Are you going to be just as supportive of that child when you're physically with them if you don't have a space and time to be physically separate from your home life and have a physical outlet for all that energy? Because it has to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't, it becomes an autoimmune condition. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
in women, that's just how it ends up, whether you like it or not. You can only suppress so much emotion for so long. It has to come out somewhere, somehow. Usually it's an autoimmune condition. And you'll be mid-40s, completely stressed, completely overwhelmed, be so good at downplaying your emotions that you don't even realize how stressed you are. And you'll have to run some routine blood work. Suddenly all these markers are just completely off and you're like, what is this about? Guess what, honey buns? That's been forming for the last 2 to 5 years. I guarantee you.
Yeah. Well, and that brings up, what I'm treading on some tricky ground here to say excuse, but perimenopause. So perimenopause gets all the attention in the world right now, right? And it's almost at the point where it's like, well, perimenopause is the culprit behind every single thing going wrong, and there's no way out. It's another way to victimize yourself, right?
Yes.
It's like, well, my hormones changed, thus I have gained weight and I cannot. How do you address women that give you that excuse?
Let's be real, because that's what I'm all about. You have been fucking with your hormones for the last 15 years. And now menopause, premenopause, perimenopause has turned up. Now it's just a magical time to use that excuse, isn't it? You haven't been lifting weights for 10 to 15 years. You haven't been eating enough protein for the last 10 to 15 years. You haven't been drinking enough water Girl, you are dehydrated. Drink some water.
Get a glass of water.
Get a glass of water. You haven't been drinking enough water for the last 10 to 15 years. Probably not up to speed with your blood work. Your blood sugar is probably not very well managed because you stress eat a lot, haven't been deep breathing, journaling. So let's say your headspace isn't in the best space of headspaces. And they're all symptoms of perimenopause, aren't they? Great. Yes. Yeah. Now I have a reason.
Yep, there's the straw man.
That looks good to me. Yeah. At the end of the day, if we know that that's going to happen, biologically speaking, because that's what's going to happen, would you like that to be a kind of terrible, experience, or would you like it to be a completely horrendous experience? Because you get to choose, right? And some people get through it relatively unscathed, shall we say. And for some people, it's really, really tough, but you're not helping yourself if you weren't previously helping yourself. And a lot of people aren't because they don't feel worthy.
Yeah.
And instead of working on how worthy they feel, because that is very confronting, it requires you to sit in a lot of ick, become very uncomfortable with yourself. realize you're responsible for 99% of your problems. It's just easy to say, oh, perimenopause, well, what do you know?
And it's almost like that thing where, it's that one thing I'm missing. It's the one thing that I haven't done, which has caused all my problems. But actually, it's not that one big thing. It's all those tiny little things.
Yes.
It's all the stuff that you do not focus on. Like you mentioned, the sleep, the stress eating, the not journaling, the not breathing, not having an outlet.
Yes.
If you actually looked at all of those aspects of your life, where are you? Are you at 80% or are you at like 30%?
Yeah.
And maybe if you brought that up, you might actually have an easier transition.
Completely. Because menopause is only going to amplify what your baseline is. So if your baseline health sucks, yes, menopause is going to make it complete shit show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you expect? Again, it's just easy to not be responsible for everything in life. It's convenient. It's really nice to not look in the mirror and be like, oh, actually, that's my fault. That's my fault. That's my problem. I could have done more about that. I could have done more about that. Could have been more proactive here. It's so much more convenient to blame children, blame work, blame husband, blame living abroad. You name it. But how does that serve you? And do you want to actually do something about it, or do you just want to complain? Because you don't get it both ways.
Yeah.
You can't actually say, this about my health sucks and that about my health sucks and that about my life sucks and that about my life sucks without eventually getting so sick of your own bullshit that you take action.
Yeah.
And that's the space that I create for the people I work with. I'm like, I recognize challenge A, B, and C. Get that. We all have challenges, okay? They might be first world problems. They might be expat problems. They might be menopause problems, children, mother, parenting problems. Got it. Cool. We all have problems. Here's the thing though. You are the common denominator because they all belong to you. So what are you doing about them? Unless you're doing something about it, I don't want to hear about it.
Yes. Preach, girl.
Right? Again, like this is what I talk about when she does not shy about expressing her views. And I love it because you're right. And I think, a lot of the things that you just mentioned are boundary issues.
Yes.
Right? So the husband thing, this is one I get all the time, and I bet you do too, which is like, oh, well, I'm going to change the way that I eat, but my husband doesn't want to. My husband is my saboteur. My husband is ordering pizzas to the house. My husband, and it's like, and I am just merely a, passerby in this pizza that has suddenly come into my purview.
It just happened to go down my digestive tract just because I looked at it and he ordered it, so it's his fault.
So it's so this is his fault.
Right.
So how do you help women set stronger boundaries? Again, whether it's the husband or whether it's the job or whether it's, how do you help women stand up and say, I am not, like you said, I'm sick of my own bullshit and I'm not taking this anymore.
I often ask them, how's that working out for you? So if they are mentioning a problem, again, problems are problems, great. Create the space to acknowledge them, because when you acknowledge it, you can do something about it. So there's power in acknowledgement. There's no power in whinging and not taking action. So often I'll say, and how's that working out for you? And they go, oh, it's not.
Yeah.
But you can't set a boundary externally unless you can set it within yourself.
Yeah.
So if you say to yourself that you're going to turn up to a podcast at 12 p.m. and you turn up at 12:05, you can't believe anything that you say to yourself. If you say you're going to take the trash out at 5 p.m. and you don't, you can't believe the next thing that you say to yourself. If you say, I'm going to go to bed at 10 p.m. because I know I need more sleep, and you do not, you cannot uphold a boundary outside of you that cannot be upheld within your own self. So unless you can set a standard for yourself and uphold it for yourself, you will not be able to externalize it. You will not be able to say it to your children. You will not be able to say it to your boss, to your partner, to your mother-in-law, you name it, you will not be able to externalize it because you do not believe what you say, because there's no alignment between your words and actions. So if you see incongruence within your own self, game over. You cannot set a boundary, let alone uphold a boundary. You must have congruence between words and actions.
That's brilliant. I always say to my kids, we made a commitment, we're going to do it.
Yes.
Like if you make that commitment, then you are showing up and you are doing what you're saying. So yeah, I think that's excellent. I feel like, a lot of people need to hear these words.
And it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes that I use in my coaching all the time, which is how you do anything is how you do everything. So if you're a half-asser in the gym, you're a half-asser at work, you're a half-asser at home. There is an element of commonality in all areas of your life, but I would say it's most obvious in the ones that you struggle with.
Yes.
And it's like, what are you doing in that area that potentially there are hints of in other areas, because you can take your own lessons.
It really reflects a person's self-confidence. And again, you can't endeavor to have greater self-confidence if you want to keep lying to yourself about yourself. And again, that's just convenient. We default to what is familiar. So if you telling yourself lies and not following through with your promises to yourself is familiar, there's an element of comfort there. So if you make that your default, it's a very slippery slope. How you then turn that around and how you then create traction in other areas of life, such as health, fitness, nutrition, well-being, is very, very challenging, but it's not impossible.
It's not impossible. And you are living proof because, what you folks at home seeing this beautiful bod and this amazing, strong woman might not realize that you were 15 kgs heavier. You guys, that's 35 pounds, my American listeners. And, Laura's not huge. So this is a significant amount of weight. So how did you cut through your own bullshit? What held you back that you were able to get over?
That is quite a distant memory now, but
good. Bye.
It's funny to reflect on that period of time. That weight by and large came about because of an injury. Flashback 2010, I had chronic inflammation in my rib cage. The cartilage which connects your rib cage to your sternum, for me, was inflamed. It's called costochondritis for anyone listening who can relate, who wants to Google that. And I went from being very, very active to being very, very stiff in my thoracic, especially my rib cage region, my trunk. And it became increasingly painful, hard to breathe. I was a swimmer. So if you can imagine having challenges breathing and swimming is not a very good combination.
Not a good combo.
Not a good combo, not very conducive to fast swimming. And I eventually had to stop swimming. In fact, I couldn't even walk to the bus stop without getting a massive stitch and pain through my trunk. So that was a journey. I didn't know how to eat as someone who wasn't exercising 5, 6, 7 hours a day, because that was my reality. I was swimming about 5 hours a day. I was still in high school. I was doing dance. I was doing physical education as subjects. I was exercising about 7, 8 hours a day some days. And so it was quite a 180 on life. And hence you go through this transition of being super athletic, super fit, super strong, feeling physically unstoppable, mentally unstoppable, to not even recognizing yourself. Mentally as well, not just physically, but mentally as well. This is not me. I am depressed. I don't know life if I can't exercise. My whole world was swimming. So it's like having your identity ripped off of you. The power in that is, it's the best thing that ever happened to me. And I had to then connect with myself on a deeper level and understand who I was at my own core. And that was confronting. That was my discomfort I had to sit in, got to sit in. That was the privilege of that. So how I started to lose the weight, I had to find someone who could help me with my injury. That took me about 2 years to find the right person. And I would have seen about 6 different specialists in that time. I eventually found someone who could help me, and I educated myself. But I think the real pivotal point in all of this, and the biggest takeaway, is when I stood on those scales, because I didn't grow up with scales in my house, I was never really aware of weight. It had no value. And when I finally was starting to feel better, a few stars aligned, I got a job at a gym and pool complex. I got free gym and pool membership. Great. Hallelujah. I remember going to the gym to use the gym and standing on the scales. Now you have to remember, I hadn't weighed myself in years. I'd also been very unwell, unable to exercise for years. I stood on the scales and went, holy mother of God, get me on the treadmill right now. But in the same breath, I didn't think less of myself. And that's what people don't get. People will hear this and be like, oh, good for her. She's always been fit. She has fit people genes. How special. No, I was 15 kilos heavier. And what made it so much easier to lose that weight was, yes, I had an active upbringing. I had health-minded parents. I had role models who were healthy. All of that made it easier. I had a degree in public health. That made it easier. But I not once thought less of myself because of the number I saw on the scales. Not once, not even a millimeter less. Not once did I think even a tiny bit less of myself. In fact, I had enormous compassion because I couldn't exercise for 2 years.
Yeah.
Not even stand in the gym and do a bicep curl. I couldn't exercise. So what would be the point of me judging myself? What would that actually do? And I could have. I could have. And people do this every single day. Your listeners get on the scales. They see a number they don't like and they judge themselves and they berate themselves and they pull themselves apart. Girl, stop. Drink some water. You're dehydrated, okay? It does you absolutely no service. Easy to say, but it does you no service.
Yeah.
And so that is what allowed me to lose the weight. It was the fact that I didn't think less of myself. My self-worth was never tied to that number, still is not. And I educated myself. And so I learned about protein.
Yeah.
And I started eating more protein. And I could start returning to the gym because my body was recovering. And I just loved it.
Yeah. You gave yourself grace.
Yes.
And so many women do not.
Again, we go back to what is comfortable, and what is familiar is comfortable. So there's an element of comfort in judging yourself if that's how you start every single morning.
Yeah.
If you start every single morning with a cup of coffee and a cup of judgment, guess what? That's comfortable.
Yeah. And the one's gotten very cold and stale. You should pour that down.
You should get rid of that. Get rid of that. So, I mean, it's all well and good to think that judgment is what gets you further. You know, if I think harsher thoughts about myself, I'll lose more weight. I promise you it's not the truth. I promise you.
If it was.
Absolutely. We would be so skinny. It would be crazy if we lost a gram for every judgment we had of ourselves. But you do not. The people who give themselves grace, the people who give themselves space to evolve, to change, are the people who actually get ahead and create that long-term change. And instead we get on the scales and we go, I don't like that number. I'm an asshole. I'm a fat bitch. I will always be a size extra, extra, extra large. There are no clothes in this country that fit me. Look at my flabby arms. Look at my flabby thigh. Look at my flabby everything. My whole body is flabby. And where have you actually moved the needle? Not on your headspace, not on your physical health. You probably then go in, eat some chocolate because you're feeling down, or a donut, or whatever you gravitate towards. That's a really critical part that's missing for a lot of people. It's where are you giving yourself space to succeed, to become that version of yourself, to become the healthier version of yourself, where for most people, they wouldn't be able to tell you. I asked a client the other day, I said, what was the last kind thought you had about yourself? She couldn't answer it.
It's similar at Lift Clinic. One of our intake form questions is, when is the last time you woke up feeling healthy and well? It's mind-blowing that we get everything from this morning, right? Like quite obviously, you know,
I woke up like this.
I don't remember, you know, and that's always the big red flag for me. And it almost always ties in with the correlation of their happy score, you know, because we also ask 1 to 10, how happy are you? How stressed are you? And it's like the folks that say, I can't remember feeling healthy and well, don't give me a 10 on happiness either, you know? So you're absolutely right that the self-worth and just the way that you live your life is so impacted if you let the scale number be a judge, jury, and executioner, as they say.
I've heard you say a few times now, you know, feeling comfortable with what you're doing, you know, not doing things that are hard. How do you think that relates to women in general when it comes to getting on with their weight loss? Because I feel like that whole comfort thing kind of provides like a blanket, a security blanket for everybody. But then, you know, actually getting on and doing something does feel difficult. So how can women go and work towards discomfort to achieve their goals?
It can be as small as just saying no to catching up with a friend. I don't think it has to be monumental. And again, this is where I think people think that the needle is really moved in those monumental moments where it's, I stood on the scales and I saw I'd lost 5 kilos. Guess what? No one's going to declare it a public holiday. I promise you. No one's going to
they would.
Right? I mean, sorry, but not sorry. No one's going to pop a bottle of champagne and be like, congratulations, now we can be friends. Now you're under 70 kilos. Now we can actually be friends. No one cares. Only you care, okay? So the reality is it doesn't have to be monumental. It's just do what you say you're going to do. If that's uncomfortable for you, to align your words with your actions, start there and start in the smallest way possible. Because the barrier to entry, the lower it is, the easier it is to get momentum.
Yeah.
And once you have momentum, it's so much easier to ride the wave of momentum. But instead, again, what's easy for people? living in extremes, making something so hard that it's almost impossible because they think they're a better person if they can achieve that monumental task. It's like, if I can't climb Mount Everest, then am I even an athlete? It's like, are you out of your mind? Like, really?
Yeah.
So again, you have to have the self-awareness to understand, what do you default to in the first place? Most people are completely unaware, like have no self-awareness. And that's why change is 1,000 times harder for those people.
Yeah.
The people who make the most change and continue to make the most change and let that compound are the people who actually have a practice of building their awareness, which means they're journaling, which means they're having uncomfortable conversations with themselves, which means they're having uncomfortable conversations with their peers, which means they're confronting their ick. They're sitting in their ick. They're meditating, they're reading self-development books, they're listening to self-development podcasts, they're asking themselves the same questions from those podcasts. They're not just going, oh yeah, sounds good, cool. Or like, oh, she had an interesting story, great. Yeah. It's taking a moment to really reflect and be introspective.
Yeah.
And that's uncomfortable for most people. For most people, that's the discomfort they need to start with.
Yeah.
It's actually going, what are the thoughts that are holding you back? Not just, oh, I didn't go to the gym this morning. You didn't go to the gym because there were thoughts which led to you not going to the gym. What were those thoughts? Or you didn't say no to the piece of pizza that your husband ordered. What were the thoughts that allowed you to not say no? You didn't think you were worthy of saying no. Why did you not think you were worthy of saying no? Where does that come from? What part of your childhood does that come from? What role modeling behavior? Did you ever see your mum say no growing up? Did your mum always say yes to your father perhaps? Like, people aren't thinking this through.
Yeah, they don't want to go way back.
Also, thinking is hard. Like, let's face it. Do you know, like, thinking is hard and thinking is uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So it's just easy to blame, not sit in the ick, not seek out discomfort. But, you know, like, I grew up in a high performance environment, so I had no choice because I wanted to be better. So my number one value is growth, which means I seek discomfort physically, mentally, emotionally, actually as often as I can.
And again, The Comfort Crisis, right? That book, I'm blanking on the author, but The Comfort Crisis is the book. And that's exactly the thesis of the book. It's like, if you never thrust yourself full speed into discomfort, you will have a harder life, by the way. Your life will be worse. You think it's comfortable, but will actually end in discomfort, you know, for whatever period that you avoid doing that.
I think it's a form of self-love to seek discomfort because you're allowing yourself to grow. Allowing yourself to grow, is that not the best kind of self-care that you can give yourself? To me, it beats a bubble bath because I get really bored. I just get too bored to have, you know, a bath. But I think that's one of the greatest forms of self-care, is to, in fact, allow yourself to grow. And what you need to grow is an element of discomfort. Now, how you do that can vary. Again, it could be journaling, it could be hiking, it could be going to the gym, it could be a silence retreat. It could
be fucking hard.
Yeah, that would be uncomfortable. That would be uncomfortable as hell.
Uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So the vehicle for that can vary, though there has to be, in order to grow, there has to be an element of discomfort.
Yeah. Because
how else are you forced to expand yourself?
There's also that issue, isn't there, where you kind of look at the short-term, is it short-term pain versus the long-term gain? And, you know, if you think, oh, do you know what? I'd rather sit here and have a Haagen-Dazs and watch Netflix because I'm tired. But then what's going to happen later on down the line? You know, I think we need to really think about being in that discomfort for a short while now is going to have massive benefits later on down the line.
Yes.
I think you have to look at your defaults. If it's your default to do that when you are in need of something else, when actually it would be much more beneficial for you to go on a walk because you barely get 2,000 steps a day.
Yes.
Girl, let's just be real for 2 seconds. You need to get the steps in. Put the Haagen-Dazs down, go for a walk, okay? On the opposite side of that, for people like myself, I actually need permission to be in comfort because that's not my default.
Yeah.
Being in comfort is not my default. It's not what I gravitate to. Giving myself permission to say, yeah, if you just want to sit still for 20 minutes, like, no one's going to die.
Yeah.
That's what I need.
Yeah.
So it's that self-awareness piece of going back to, where am I likely to default? What comfort is killing my dreams? And what comfort is enabling me to get to where I want to be? Because I can't keep going at 1,000,000 miles an hour unless I sit still for 20 minutes once a week.
Yeah.
But I have that self-awareness. I know when I need to be still. I often resist it, but then I, come to my senses and realize this will be the fuel for the next 12 hours, 14 hours, whatever the case may be. But it's that self-awareness piece. What do you default to? Without self-awareness, you will have no idea.
And I think the self-awareness is so huge. And I think you are right. There are a lot of women that are just not in touch with their deeper needs. And again, whether that's a screaming for rest or screaming for movement or whatever it may be. And I think, something that we all share in terms of what our jobs are here in Singapore is these, we get tagged a lot on these expat wives groups. Okay. So again, for those listening out of Singapore, it's just Facebook groups, and there's some popular ones here in Singapore, and you get tagged every single time there's a woman in their 40s trying to lose weight.
Yes.
And that in itself is not remarkable, right? But what is remarkable is the advice that is given on these platforms.
Oh, my days.
For example, you know what it really is? It's your gut health. You know what it really is? You got to get to Pilates. You know what would really help you is joining the neighborhood Zumba.
Pickleball.
Yeah, pickleball. That's the new
pickleball.
one. Yeah, it's like
Yes.
pickleball will change your life. I think that all three of us sitting here, devotees of weight training, of getting muscle on the bod.
Yes.
How do you, again, get women that are not comfortable with this form of training and immediately think they're going to bulk up, get huge, and not burn enough calories from it, let's say. How do you get women in the weight room? Because I know that's how you work with your clients.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm still trying to get bulky.
Right, girl. God, preach.
That's what I say to them. I'm like, bulky. Oh, if you figure it out, let me know, because I'm still working on that.
Yeah.
I think few things beat feeling strong in your own skin. And so when you create space and opportunity for women in particular to feel strong, which then translates to real world examples such as lifting the suitcase off the luggage carousel in the airport without their husband's help, because this is a common story that I receive. They're like, I lifted that suitcase up all by myself. I was like, brace your core, hinge at the hips, engage your back, rotate. And they're like, and I just lifted like it was nothing. And I'm like, because we've been practicing. Why else do we deadlift? So you can easily lift up suitcases off luggage carousels in airports. And I don't think anything beats that. Once you've been exposed to that, you can't be unexposed to that. You can't unhave that experience.
Yeah.
And it's such a badass feeling to be able to do that.
Oh,
And
I love it.
Right? To be able to even lift heavier than some men in the gym is quite exciting and fun for a lot of women. And I just think people are so delusional about what it actually takes to look bulky, to look like a bodybuilder. Often you're going to be on some sort of performance enhancing drugs. In most instances at the elite level, you have to be in the gym 6, if not 7 days a week. You have to have every gram of food weighed out to the gram. I mean, your calories and your macros are precision point. Hydration, also incredibly precise. Supplementation, incredibly precise. Blood work has to be done every 6 or so months. That's a sport. You have to think of it as a sport. You don't accidentally become Lando Norris just because you drove a car once. You don't become someone who looks like a bodybuilder by going to the gym 3 times a week and eating 2 grams of protein per kilo of what you weigh. People are just so delusional. Yeah. It's if only it were that easy.
Is that your recommendation for most women? 3 times a week, 2 grams per kg body weight?
Minimum. Less than that, just like, okay, not a bad effort. I don't want to discourage anyone who's listening. They're like, I'm only on 1.5 grams and that's really, really tough. That's cool. But I like people at 2 because let's face it, your rate of loss of muscle mass is only going to accelerate after menopause. And so I want people to have that buffer where it's like, if I get you 2 grams of protein per kilo of what you weigh and you're lifting 3 times a week in your 30s and early 40s, by the time you get to 45 and let's say menopause is starting to creep in, we're sensing it's around the corner, girl, you are going to be in such a better position than if you start all of that at 45.
So for someone who's, say, overweight, would you then say ideal body weight? Or would you then, so like if someone is, I don't know, 75 kilos, you would say
150 grams.
Yes.
Okay.
For most people, that's a damn struggle because most people would barely get 1 gram per kilo of what they weigh. Yeah. So I do it in stages. I try to get them up to 1.5. That usually takes people 16 weeks. before they have a good gauge and sense of how to do that on a day-to-day basis, how to do that on a busy day, how to do that on a day where the school bus comes late or doesn't turn up at all, how to do that when they're on a long haul flight, how to do that on a day where they don't exercise, and all those different circumstances. A lot of people are just focused on the number. They're not focused on how to still reach that number 1,000 different ways. And that's what I say to people. Your goal is to figure out how to get 2 grams of protein per kilo 1,000 different ways.
What about
under 1,000 different circumstances?
Sorry, what about the type of protein now? Does that matter? Can someone just eat like loads of tofu and drink protein shakes all day long? Would that be sufficient? Like, what's your thoughts on the type of protein that they should be taking in?
I think that is something that you can refine over time. But initially, I just want people to get the protein, honestly. Because at the end of the day, if someone likes white fish, cool, get as much protein from white fish as possible. I don't want to make it harder for people.
Yeah.
It's already hard.
Yeah, exactly right.
Amanda, you know how people always ask us, what supplements do you actually take?
Yeah, it's like they think there's some magical midlife stack that'll just fix everything.
Exactly. And while there's no magic, I do like things that are intentional and well formulated, like the longevity bundle from Avea Life.
It's one of the few supplements I'd actually recommend. NMN for cellular energy, booster with antioxidants to support recovery and stress, and a collagen activator because joints and skin need some love too.
Honestly, it's just smart. 3 products that support how we live, busy, health conscious, and not here for the gimmicks.
You can check it all out at avea-life.com and use code FORMULA20 for 20% off at checkout. It's clean, effective, no fluff. I think we actually mentioned this quote. It's probably something I say on the podcast 10 times, but it's like, the best time to start was in your 30s.
Yes.
The second best time to start, though, is literally right now. So let's get on that, right?
Today.
But what type of investments do you think women need to be taking in their health for the future? So, it's like so many times in our line of work, it's like people are investing in supplements, investing in rapamycin, invest in, molecular stuff, investing in some piece of home Pilates equipment or, the
AG1.
God, again, all the sponsors we'll never have. But anyway, so the point is, like, where should women be directing the time and money resources that you mentioned earlier are the most important and really the only things we have, right? So what's the investment that pays back?
Building muscle 100%.
Yeah.
Yes. It does run the risk of sounding very snooty, especially coming from someone who physically looks like me. But there is no substitution for lifting weights. You can get aerobic training done through swimming, through running, through elliptical, through cycling, through walking, through hiking. There's a lot of different ways in which you can improve your cardiovascular fitness. There's a lot of vehicles for that. The same cannot be said for resistance training. There is no substitution, okay? If you want to lift lighter weights quickly, cool. If you want to lift heavy weights slowly, cool. Ultimately, there's no substitution for the lifting itself. So you have to lift weights if you want to age well. And it's your best anti-aging organ. Muscle mass is your best anti-aging muscle. So all the tretinoin and all the sunscreen in the world is great, but if your body is saggy and if you have poor bone density, then walking up and down stairs, you might have a really cute face walking up and down stairs because of all that tretinoin and all that sunscreen. But if you're holding onto the damn handrail, afraid that you're going to break your ankle, that doesn't sound like fun. I mean, what service have you actually done to you? If you're completely hunched over, if you're a bit kyphosis-y, that's not cute. And again, you can have the most clean skin in the universe, but if you are not able to lift up a box off the ground, lift up your grocery bags, take something out of the back of a taxi, just normal day-to-day stuff, then like, what are you prioritizing here?
Yeah.
I really don't understand. So lifting weights, no substitution for it. Supplements, I love creatine. It's very well documented. The benefits of that are very well documented. And cognitive benefits too, especially as we age, tremendous, especially at higher doses. So creatine, I think for sure, great. Takes 2 seconds, put it in water, drink it, easy, done. So between those two, I think it's hard to beat that. And then, of course, the protein.
And again, creatine, protein, muscle mass, lifting weights, these are all related. These are not separate line items. These are literally the same exact line item said 4 different ways.
Yes.
But what about protein being bad for your kidneys?
Performance-enhancing drugs are bad for your kidneys.
Yeah, alcohol. Also not great for the kidneys.
Not great for your kidneys. Yeah. So the thing about protein, right? We often see behaviors go together. So people who tend to have better cardiovascular fitness might also have higher vitamin D levels because they walk outside or they might swim. So they're getting that vitamin D exposure. So we often see healthy behaviors in conjunction with one another. And what we probably are noticing as it relates to kidneys is those people with kidney problems are probably on performance enhancing drugs. So you probably shouldn't be afraid of that unless you're taking performance enhancing drugs.
Yeah.
But we've studied people at 3 grams of protein per kilo of what we weigh. And at 3 grams of protein, their kidneys are still perfectly fine.
And there's a new study that came out of older men, 3.5 grams, men over 75.
Wow.
Right? So it's, this is the question I get a lot when it's like, well, okay, that might be okay for me now. But like, what about my parents? I was like, your parents, add 20% to what I just told you.
Absolutely. And they do really well in higher doses in one go, from what I understand. So like 40 grams of protein per meal. Older population people tend to respond really, really well to those really high doses in one sitting. So again, what's bad for your kidneys? Is all that alcohol to distract you from your misery good for your kidneys? No. Should you be worried about protein? Probably not. I'd worry about the wine.
Yeah. Definitely that.
What about coming to, calories? Like obviously people are going to say, oh, I shouldn't be having carbs, or I don't eat that much, or, my job means I have to go out drinking loads. How can people understand what is actually impacting them when it comes to what they put into their bodies?
It's just tuning in, isn't it? So what types of carbohydrates work with you before you exercise comes back to you observing how you feel when you have that form of food. People are often quite surprised, I suppose, when I can tell them the level of detail to which I understand things about my body, which seem just so normal to me because, I've been an athlete since the age of 2. So I do have all that data. I do have all that anecdotal data. If you're not making an effort to tune in, you're not going to get the data. The data is there. Now, whether you respond well to rice before exercise or a banana or bread or potato really comes down to you trying and you observing. We know what the parameters are in terms of dosage, but how that digests for you and under what circumstances, again, you just have to try and you just have to observe, because I can only tell you so much. Nutrition is an art and a science. Working with people is also arguably an art and a science. So you have to, in a way, treat yourself a little bit like a guinea pig until you have that insight. But that takes time and people have no patience. And impatience often comes down to people judging themselves. People are impatient because they judge themselves and they don't want to sit in that discomfort of not having that outcome. So instead of sitting in that in between, that journey, that process phase, they judge themselves, get upset, go on a downward spiral, and then default to their normal behaviors. Their comfortable behaviors, because that's what they are familiar with. And that's where you really have to hold that space for people and be like, this is a process. This is a journey. You don't get to that 5 kilo weight loss or that 10 kilo weight loss without enduring some icky, uncomfortable in-between phase of not really knowing where this is going, where you might plateau for a while. You might hold water weight for a while. You might not see the scale change for a while. But if you sit in it long enough, we know that we will achieve X, Y, and Z outcome. But that's where trusting a really good coach makes all the difference.
And like you said, you have to trust the process.
You have to.
Getting obsessed with the outcome is it's the other end of that bracket of never getting started because you're so, self-hating.
Yes.
The other end of that is getting so hyper-focused on the outcome that you cannot appreciate or be happy in the process.
Absolutely. If you want a high-performance body, you have to have high-performance habits and a belief system that backs it up. And until you have that, you'll continue to spiral. You'll continue to spiral. All of this comes back to behaviors, but your behaviors are predicated on your belief system. And a lot of people just go about changing their behaviors. I'm like, that's cute, honey buns. But if you have the same belief system, you'll inevitably go back to where you were.
Yeah.
You have to evolve your belief system to allow you to become that healthier version of yourself.
It's almost like saying, oh, I'm trying to give up smoking versus I don't smoke. If you say I'm trying to give up smoking, it indicates that you are a smoker. But if you say I don't smoke, it's like, I'm not a smoker. So, I don't need a cigarette.
Absolutely.
And same goes for food, same goes for exercise. If you've got that mindset and you're saying that I am this person, then you're more likely to believe that about yourself and go ahead and do that. And then again, also, I feel like it's habit-based as well. Like for us, we don't need motivation to go to the gym.
Never once.
Right? We just go because...
I don't expect to be motivated. No. I don't. There's no real sense of feeling. It's just fact.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is when I'm going. I sometimes get there and I'm like, I don't really feel like being here. Like, oh, well, I'm here.
Might as well do it.
I'm not going to not do my workout.
So here we go. Yep, just turn up music a little louder and now I get to it.
The music might be a little bit more like gangsta badassery today instead of maybe Beyonce, but yeah, it's exactly that. It's embedded in your identity. Again, I never thought less of myself when I stepped on the scales because my identity had nothing to do with the scales. My identity had all to do with how I see me. How I see me, the scales doesn't come into that factor. My weight doesn't come into that. And that's why it was, relatively speaking, easy to lose the weight once my body was well enough to start exercising again. So you're absolutely right. It's that whole habits side of things, but it's the beliefs that map to the habits. Most people couldn't tell you what beliefs they have, which lead them on those habits, which are keeping them stuck. They don't understand the beliefs that stop them from saying no to that piece of pizza that their husband ordered.
Yeah.
They couldn't tell you. They absolutely could not tell you.
Yeah. Or they rationalize it with some other thing that isn't that thing. So instead of saying, I'm not setting proper boundaries and I'm not worthy of, a better life, they'll be like, oh, well, I feel ungrateful. When I'm offered the food at the party that is, the indulgent food that I know is not on my plan, I feel ungrateful if I say no. So they create this rationalization lifestyle around some of those beliefs. And that's just as damaging.
It's almost a way of being a victim, but on the other side of that same coin.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I'm a victim of this circumstance, of gratitude. So then somehow it sounds lofty and,
There's a lot of ways in which we can position keeping ourselves stuck as being for the betterment of others.
Yes.
And you're either going to make an effort to identify how that turns up in your life and evolve that, or it's going to be the same reason why you lose 5 kilos next year and put on 10 for the 10th year in a row, probably.
Yeah, because you're right, because you get into that habit, don't you, where it's like, I've lost the weight and now I've gained the weight and lost the weight, gained the weight. And I think a lot of the time it's like almost anyone can lose weight. But it's that keeping it off, which is the hard bit, because that's what requires the discipline.
And the identity shift.
And the identity shift. And actually understanding that you are a new person now. You can't go back to your old ways because then you'll revert back to your old self.
It doesn't even cross your mind. Once you have made that evolution, it doesn't even cross your mind. You just continue to pour more into the next version of you because there's no full stop to it.
Yeah.
I don't see a full stop to my health and fitness journey. I mean, I half jokingly tell people that I lift weights because I want to be able to unscrew jars of peanut butter in my 80s.
Yeah.
And I'm actually very serious about that because if I can't live life with peanut butter, then like
that is no life.
That's not a life I want to be here for, quite frankly. I don't want to be bothering my neighbor to be like, oh, so sorry to inconvenience you.
Unless he's really fit though.
Yeah, it's kind of hot.
Then I might deliberately not be able to. But
or even worse, you just say, well, I guess my life doesn't have peanut butter now. Because that's what people do is they just give up the part of their life that required that strength or skill or ability. And that is heartbreaking.
Look, even people in their 30s, I see them get onto the ground in the gym and they put their hand on the nearest object
to get up.
They start acting fragile before they are fragile.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're walking up and down the stairs holding the handrail and you're not wearing high heels and it's not a slippery set of stairs, why? Why? What you're telling yourself is that you don't trust yourself. You don't trust your body to get you up and down those stairs because you don't have strength. And on a subconscious level, your body knows it doesn't have strength. That's why it's reaching for the handrail. So you're absolutely right. I mean, I think of my health and life in decades. And that's, again, how it's easy to keep the weight off that I've lost because I have that long-term vision. But you have to have an abundance mindset to have that.
Yeah.
You can't just be living month to month. I'm going to do the next 30-day challenge. I'm going to do the next 30-day challenge and the next 30-day challenge and the next 30-day challenge. At some point, you have to realize most of us are going to live somewhere into our 80s. That's the average life expectancy in most developed countries, right? So if you're only thinking about 1 year and you're going to live to be 80, what is that? Like not even 2% of your whole life. Really?
Yeah.
You just not even thinking, like if you live to be 100, 1 year is literally 1% of your life. You have to think beyond 1% at some point.
It's the 40-year challenge.
Yeah, exactly.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And really, I mean, preparation for menopause and your 40s starts in your 30s. I even tell women in their 20s, it's never going to be easier to build muscle.
Oh my God.
It's never going to be easier to build muscle right now. So like, please leverage that.
Yes.
Because it only gets harder.
Yes. And again, those women in their 20s are potentially getting pregnant in their 30s. And it's like, you have to be, if that's part of your life, if you know, having kids is part of your life, then you have to remember that you're going to have these extended periods where anabolism is not in your favor. So like, do what you can before that time. And then after pregnancy, get back on it because your menopause is coming. It's like we as women, unfortunately, do have these cycles that kind of pull us into places that are not favorable for muscle mass, right? So we have to do everything we can to take control of our own health in that regard.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I get very heated up about that.
Love it. Bring me in.
Well, speaking of things in the future for you, girl, you are not 40 yet. And that, you are one of our very esteemed guests that's allowed to be here under 40. So thank you for joining us for that. But I do think that you have some wisdom to impart on women who are in their 40s. And one of the questions we ask every guest on this show is, what is your 40s formula? Can you distill all that beautiful message that you just gave us over the past hour into something that women can take right now into their lives and implement?
So I work with a lot of women who have experienced menopause, who are in that age and stage of life. And what I've noticed is most of them are under-muscled. We talk about body fat being high. That's a thing for sure. But I don't think being under-muscled gets enough recognition. And if we look at preparing for the 40s and 50s and beyond, what holds us in good stead is having sufficient muscle mass. Again, quality of life, independence as you age, healthy blood sugar relationship, healthy metabolism. Everyone wants to blame menopause for their metabolism. But if you enter menopause under-muscled, your metabolism stands no chance. Of course, it's going to be complete shit show. So muscle mass. Build the muscle as early as you can, as often as you can, and do not stop. Like, just keep going. Turn up imperfectly and make that a habit. I tell that to my clients all the time. I'm like, I can help anyone who turns up, but I cannot do the turning up for you. So you get here. I don't care if you've had 3 hours of sleep. I don't care if you haven't slept. I don't care if your child is sick. I mean, I do. I hope they get better soon. But that is irrelevant. It's your health and fitness journey. So get good at turning up for yourself and keep turning up. And then protein. Lots of protein. All the protein you can. Creatine, great supplement. Love it. 5, 6 to 10. I think high doses of 10. We're studying and seeing great cognitive benefits. So love me some creatine. And just keep connecting with yourself, because it's easier for you to help yourself if you understand why you're not helping yourself, or where you're not helping yourself, where you're not asking for help. So for me, it comes down to those 3 pillars. It's building muscle, it's getting enough protein in the diet, and it's unpacking your own relationship with yourself and continuing to evolve that, because that only makes it easier to do the other 2 things time and time again.
Real talk, girl. Know thyself, right?
Know thyself.
Thank you so much for being here today, Laura. You have given us just some wonderful hardcore advice, but also just some really beautiful things to think about. And I thank you for that today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
It's been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
We talk a lot on the podcast about showing up for ourselves, but it really does start with what we put in our bodies.
Exactly. I'm at that stage where I want to feel strong, clear-headed, and feel like my skin's not giving up on me.
Relatable. So what is your go-to right now?
I've been using Avea Life's longevity bundle. It includes NMN to support energy metabolism, booster for antioxidant protection, and collagen activator, which honestly has been lovely for my skin and joints.
It's that whole body support without the fluff. Perfect for women who want to feel good, not just look good.
Couldn't agree more. And for our listeners, you can get 20% off at avea-life.com and use code Formula20 for 20% off. Guys, we love coffee. And if you want to show us some love, you can always get us one.
Just visit buymeacoffee.com/the40s formula.
Cheers.
Before we go, please remember to hit subscribe and take a moment to support the 40s formula by leaving a review on your favorite podcast platform.
Your reviews will help us to reach more people and allow us to continue to bring valuable content. It should only take a moment, and it's a free way for you to support the show.
You can also stay updated with the Forties Formula by following us on Instagram at the Forties Formula, all one word. We share behind-the-scenes insights, episode updates, and much more, so please be sure to hit that follow button.
We appreciate your time and support. Thank you for being part of this community, and we'll be back next week for more empowering conversations with inspiring guests.
Bye.
Bye.
I think we're too quick to pedestalize fit people.
Yeah.
It's like, no, honey buns, I don't have fit people genes.
Yeah.
Like, I was 15 kilos heavier. So
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people do think, oh, you know, you're only doing this job because you've always
It's
been
easy for you.
skinny and you've never had to struggle
always
through that
being
weight loss.
fit.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, if I eat more calories than what I burn, I will also put on weight. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I don't
fair.
have a special thing that I'm hiding. Like, that's just thermodynamics.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you don't lift, those extra calories will go where?
Yeah.
You'll still have muscles though, right?
To my hips.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man.